Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The United States and Israel are continuing large-scale bombings across Iran, where officials say nearly 1,350 civilians have been killed in 12 days of attacks. Among the dead are at least 40 people, most of them civilian, killed in their homes when an airstrike ripped through a residential neighborhood in eastern Tehran. Survivors said 3 residential buildings were bombed simultaneously while a missile struck a nearby police station. Iran's health ministry reports over a dozen hospitals and clinics across Iran have suffered damage, including the Gandhi Hospital in Tehran. Meanwhile, U.S. and Israeli strikes have damaged some centuries-old locations designated by the United Nations as World Heritage Sites, including the Chachel Sotun Palace in the city of Isfahan. The Guardian is reporting Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, was injured in the first February 28th attack that killed 6 of his family members, including his father, Iran's former supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The Guardian cited Tehran's ambassador to Cyprus, who said Khamenei was lucky to survive the strike, which left him hospitalized with injuries to his legs, hand, and arm. On Capitol Hill, Pentagon officials told lawmakers Wednesday the cost of the first 6 days of war against Iran has exceeded $11.3 billion, a figure that does not include the cost of the massive buildup of military forces in the Middle East ahead of the strikes. Meanwhile, a preliminary assessment from the Pentagon has determined the U.S. was at fault for the missile strike at an Iranian girls' school on February 28th that killed 168 children and 14 teachers. President Trump's repeatedly blamed Iran's military for the bombing. On Wednesday, he told reporters he was unaware of the mounting evidence that the U.S. was responsible. Trump's latest denial came as 46 senators, all of them Democrats or independents, signed a letter to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth demanding answers. They write, quote, "The United States and Israel must abide by U.S. and international law, including the law of armed conflict. There must be a swift investigation into the strikes on this school and any other potential U.S. military actions causing civilian harm, and the findings must be released to the public as soon as possible, along with any measures to pursue accountability," unquote. The Washington Post reports the elementary school building was on a U.S. target list and may have been mistaken for a military site. It's not clear whether artificial intelligence tools were responsible for targeting it. The U.S. and Israel are relying on software developed by Palantir to select thousands of targets across Iran. The software relies partly on Anthropic's Claude AI systems. This week, Anthropic sued the Trump administration for designating the AI company as a supply chain risk after Anthropic refused to allow Claude to be used for autonomous weapons or mass domestic surveillance. Iran's military says it targeted Israeli air bases and the Shin Bet headquarters in Tel Aviv as drone and missile attacks from Iran and Hezbollah triggered air raid sirens across northern and central Israel. Iranian drones also struck at Middle Eastern nations that host U.S. military bases. Iraq and Oman shut down oil terminals after attacks on 2 oil tankers sparked massive fires and killed 1 person. Strikes also hit oil storage facilities in Oman. A 3rd ship was struck off the coast of the United Arab Emirates. In Dubai, an Iranian drone struck a residential building, sparking a fire, while 4 people were injured by attacks on Dubai International Airport. In Bahrain, smoke rose over the capital, Manama, after an Iranian drone strike on fuel storage tanks at Bahrain International Airport. Kuwait International Airport was also hit by several drones. Meanwhile, Iran continues to attack Saudi Arabia's eastern oil fields and targeted Prince Sultan Air Base with ballistic missiles that Saudi officials say they successfully intercepted. The International Energy Agency has agreed to release 400 million barrels of oil from strategic reserves as the U.S.-Israeli attack on Iran roils energy markets. That's more than double the amount of oil released in 2022 after Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. It comes as Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, says it will not allow, quote, a leader of oil through the Strait of Hormuz, with an IRGC spokesman warning, quote, expect oil at $200 per barrel, unquote. Saudi Arabia is ramping up crude oil flow through its pipeline from the kingdom's eastern coast to a port on the Red Sea. But oil production experts say that will not address fuel shortages if Iran targets the pipeline or if Yemen's Houthis resume attacks on vessels in the Red Sea. On Wednesday, House Speaker Mike Johnson called the spike in gas prices temporary.
I think the mission is being achieved, is nearly completed, and the commander-in-chief himself said in the last 24 hours it will come to a close. So gas prices will readjust after that. This is a temporary blip in an extraordinary trend of a return to American energy dominance.
Israel is continuing its relentless bombardment of Lebanon, where authorities say more than 630 people, at least 91 of them children, have been killed over the past week. More than 816,000 people have been registered as displaced due to Israeli forced evacuation orders and airstrikes. Among the latest attacks was an overnight double-tap strike on Beirut's beachfront, targeting a tent camp housing displaced Lebanese families. At least 8 people were killed and 21 injured by the Israeli strikes, which came without warning at 3 in the morning. In southern Lebanon, mourners gathered Wednesday for the funeral of the Lebanese Red Cross volunteer Youssef Asaf, who was killed in an Israeli strike.
What happened was that we were present in an area trying to evacuate wounded people, and a bomb fell among them. 2 of our young men were targeted. One of them is still in the hospital, undergoing treatment and surgeries.
In Gaza, Israeli forces have continued deadly attacks on Palestinians over the past 24 hours in the latest violations of the U.S.-brokered October 10th ceasefire agreement. Palestinian reporters say 2 women were killed and 7 others were injured, including 3 children, after Israeli forces targeted tents sheltering displaced families in the Nuseirat refugee camp. In western Gaza City, health officials say 1 Palestinian was killed and others were wounded when an Israeli drone fired a missile on a market. This is a Palestinian survivor of the attack.
What is the fault of children? Children are gone, women are gone, elderly people are gone. Why us? What do they have to do with this? We are peaceful, but the Israelis don't know peace. They don't want peace in the Middle East. They want to fight the whole world.
In Sudan, a drone strike in the village of Shukari killed 17 people, most of them girls. The Sudan Doctors Network said the paramilitary group Rapid Support Forces, RSF, was responsible for the strike. The village reportedly had no presence of the Sudanese military. The civil war in Sudan erupted in 2023 as fighting between the RSF and the Sudanese killed more than 40,000 people and forced nearly 15 million people to flee their homes. U.S. Republican Senator John Cornyn of Texas has reversed his position on the filibuster in order to pass President Trump's Save America Act. The bill would require proof of citizenship for voter registration, require photo ID to cast a ballot, and require states to run voter rolls through a federal database kept by the Department of Homeland Security. Senator Cornyn is currently locked in a tight runoff election for his Senate seat with Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton and is seeking President Trump's endorsement. The Save America Act was passed by the House, but Senate Democrats have vowed a filibuster to defeat the bill. Senate Majority Leader John Thune has refused to change the Senate's rules to force a vote. On Wednesday, President Trump criticized Thune, saying he's got to be a leader, unquote. President Trump has vowed to not sign any other legislation until he's signed the Save America Act into law. In New Hampshire, Democrat Bobby Bodeman won a special election for a state house seat on Wednesday, beating the Republican Dale Fincher and flipping a Republican district President Trump carried easily in 2024. Tuesday's election saw a 16-point swing in favor of the Democratic candidate, the latest sign that Republicans could face huge losses in November's midterm elections. According to the Democratic Legislative Campaign Committee, Democrats have flipped 28 seats since President Trump won in 2024. Republicans haven't flipped any seats currently held by Democrats. On Wednesday, President Trump traveled to the Kentucky district of Republican Congressmember Thomas Massie to campaign against him. Massie is a co-sponsor, along with Democratic Congressmember Ro Khanna, of the Epstein Files Transparency Act and voted in favor of an Iran War Powers resolution.
You know what the name is? He is the worst person. His name is, what the hell? How did he ever end up in Kentucky? His name is Thomas Massie.
Richard Kahn, the longtime accountant of the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, appeared for a closed-door deposition on Capitol Hill Wednesday. Democratic Congressmember James Walkinshaw, who sits on the House Oversight Committee, said, quote, Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking ring would not have been possible without Richard Kahn, who managed Epstein's money for years, authorized payments, including payments to victims and survivors, unquote. Kahn claimed he was unaware of Epstein's sexual abuse and had not seen any of his victims. Meanwhile, lawmakers are seeking to interview Tova Noel, one of the prison guards on duty when Epstein was found dead in his jail cell, a death ruled a suicide by the New York chief medical examiner. According to the New York Post, FBI records suggest Noel had twice run a Google search for the phrase latest on Epstein in jail in the hours before Epstein's body was discovered. Chase Bank also flagged cash deposits in Noel's bank account in a suspicious activity report to the FBI in November 2019, with a $5,000 cash deposit 10 days before Epstein's death. And in immigration news, there are disturbing new details about Egyptian mother Hayam El-Gamal and her 5 children who've been imprisoned at the U.S. Family Detention Center for more than 9 months, the longest known family detention under President Trump's second term. In 59 pages of declarations that include handwritten letters and pictures drawn by the 5 children, the family details abhorrent medical care, inedible food, and a disregard for their religious freedom to practice Islam at the South Texas Family Residential Center in Dilley. The documents were first published by the Texas Tribune. In one note, El-Gamal's 16-year-old son writes, quote, this prolonged detention has and continues to destroy our lives. It's slowly killing us on the inside. Our mental health is at great risk. It's rapidly deteriorating with every day we spend here. Our lives are without purpose. We are just waiting for this nightmare to end, he writes. Under a federal 1997 settlement agreement, parents and children can generally not be in prison for more than 20 days in immigration jails, although the Trump administration is suing to reverse that ruling and has violated it many times at the ICE family jail in Dilley, Texas. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman in Los Angeles. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more.